Good evening. Oh, let me get myself comfortable. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna wait. I'm like this glare from my glasses. I don't really like it. So I may just take those off, and now it's like something's blowing in my eye. I can't win. But yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna wait. I think I'm just gonna go straight into today. Today is another talk. I think this whole week is gonna be another talk. After I got off of here yesterday, I just, I went to the store, and I'm gonna tell y'all, the way that life happens and the way that things take place, we really don't know the opportunities that are waiting for us. That sometimes we can pray and we can ask God what's next. He's not gonna answer. You're gonna find it in your day-to-day living. You're gonna find it in the next thing that you do. And yesterday I was like, I'm going to the dollar store because my baby needs some dog food, and I said, I'm just going to go grab something. But while I was there, I wanted a snack. And me and Emery, we lingered around. She found her something, and I was like, we're both going to get one thing. And, I debated to myself. I was like, am I going to allow myself to get something, or am I just simply going to get the dog food? And I kept going back to the freezer, and there was just this smell. And I said, you know what? I wanted tater tots. Like, I randomly saw them, and so I was like, I have a taste. And I put them back because I said I don't like the smell. I don't like the smell in this freezer. And while I was there, we left, and I remember seeing I don't know if they were two state troopers. I saw one, and it was like, okay, what's going on? This is weird. This is random, especially for this part of town. And I saw him turn his sirens off, lights still going, but he got in the back of that SUV, and he pulled out, I guess it's like the spikes, y'all. And I was like, what in the world am I about to witness? What am I about to see? And Emery was like, Mama, what you doing? I said, baby, we're just going to sit here. We're going to sit here. We're going to wait. And the only thing that I could think about, I was like, Lord, I just need to pray. I just need to pray to myself. I didn't even have the words to say, but that was just what my mind was on. I just need to pray. And before I know it, another one came up. They sped off real fast, lights going, no sirens. And all I could do again was, I was just like, God, I pray. I just pray for the well-being of everybody. I pray, even if somebody has gotten themselves in trouble legally, I pray their well-being. Saw an ambulance, come by later on while I was at the gas station that was right beside the dollar store. And I was just like, Father God, I just pray that all is well. But after that, I had that thought, and I said, am I going to allow myself to get this one thing, one item? And so I took myself to Brookshire's, right around the corner. And again, we took our precious time because we were in no rush. And I checked out. And I remember debating. I said, which way am I going to go home? Because one part of the road was blocked off. And I said, well, I can go around this other way, and I'll still be able to get to that same side of the road. But I share all of this to say, all of my debating, all of my questioning, all of my wondering, because a part of it, I was like, Lord, if I go get myself these tater tots, is this me being a good steward over the very little that I like? I'm not joking. I'm being serious, because y'all, sometimes, this is our thought process. I said, if I go get this bag of tater tots, am I going to be a poor steward over the little that I don't know why to say the little that I have left, or just the little that I had? And I did. It was $3, and I was like, you know what, Ladisha, you're gonna eat on these for a couple of days. You're not gonna eat them all at one time. But in doing so, I saw a lady, and she had a really big suitcase, really big luggage, a couple of bags, And I saw she was smaller than I am, and she was struggling. And I got out of the way, but I kind of felt bad because she was just, in the middle of the street. And I started going, and I watched the cars around me, and I was like, nobody's gonna stop to see if she needs help. There was a truck that went real slow, and I was like, well, maybe they're talking to her, until I realized that truck went on and went on about their business. But something in me continued to look at her, and all that I could think was, if it was me, Lord, if it was me. It was raining on and off, and I was like, it was getting dark outside, and I was like, if it was me. And another thought that went through my mind was, Lord, what if this is you? What if this is you testing my heart? Because, and I'm being honest, because I put the rest of what I had in my checking account in my gas tank. I was riding around on E, and I was like, I need to put this gas in my tank, and I'm just gonna put what I got, because for this big old girl, it's not gonna be a whole lot. And I had that ultimatum, and I remember telling Emery, I said, look, we're gonna pray. I pulled over into one of the parking lots, because she was not gonna have any choice but to pass. And I said, Emery, mommy's gonna pray really fast, and I'm just gonna pray that, I'm gonna pray our safety. I'm gonna pray, I said, because I'm gonna ask this lady, does she need a ride? I said, and if she says yes, I said, baby, mommy doesn't, I don't know. I said, I don't know her mind frame. I don't know any of this. But I told myself, I said, we are not gonna operate based off fear. We are going to move, and we're just going to believe that if she needs a ride, I'm gonna take her, and it's not going to be too far out of the way. If she denies it, at least I know that I at least tried. And I waited, and she was coming past, and she didn't hear me the first time, and I was like, ma'am, do you need a ride? Will you even I was like, will you even accept a ride? And she looked at me, and she says, if it's not out of your way. And she mentioned where she was going. And the whole time I was just like, Father, you got to protect me. You got to protect my baby. And, I helped her get her stuff in and different stuff like that. And she got in, and it started to rain. Like while we were driving towards the downtown area, the rain began to pick up. And all she could say was, I thank you. And we didn't have a lot of communication all the way there. She kind of spoke more than I did. But when it was all said and done, when we got to the end, all she kept saying, she was like, thank you. And I was honest with her. I said, ma'am, I didn't know if this was good or bad. I said, I prayed before I even addressed you. I said, but what continued to go through my mind was this. I said, what if it was me? And I also told her, I said, I know that when I pray and I'm asking God for help, I know how it feels wondering if there's going to be an answer. But I also know that a lot of times God uses other people. And I told her, I said, I didn't know what you prayed. I didn't know if you prayed a prayer. I said, and I didn't know if God was going to allow for me or wanted me to be the person that was going to be an answer to your prayers. And I told her, I said, it costs, I said, hate costs a lot, but love doesn't cost you anything. I said, for me to love you, for me to love a woman I don't know, for me to love my neighbor, for me to love a stranger, I said, it doesn't cost me anything. I said, but I gain so much knowing that I'm able to do something for somebody else, that I would pray if I was in that situation that somebody would stop and they would have a heart enough to be able to help me. And I looked at her, and I saw the water and the tears in her eyes begin to well up. And she was honest, and she said, she said the last thing that I served was, I think it was like Buddha. I think that's what she said, if I remember. It started with a B. And she said, I don't actively, practice it now. And I all I could do was sit there. And I was just like, okay, I was not expecting this. But I listened to her, and she said, the God that you reference is referenced, I guess in the books and the teachings and whatever. I don't know. I didn't argue with her. She said, he's not called the same name. She said, but he's referenced to that. And all that I could tell her was this. I said, it's based off love. I said, if I don't have nothing else to give, I have love. And I told her, I said, I didn't know if I was entertaining an angel. I said, and where I am in my life, I know that I need so much for him that I refuse to miss out on an opportunity because of the way that the world is. And I was like, you know, the world has so much hate, but there's so much love. If we choose to love, I said, there's so much love. And when it was all said and done, the moment she stepped out, I helped her get her bags out. You know, she went on about her way. And as soon as she did, there was something that I felt. And I don't believe that it came from her per se, but my head began to hurt. And then as I was driving, my stomach, and I told my baby, I said, I have to pray. I said, I don't just have to pray for me, I have to pray for her. I have to pray because I said, I know the enemy is upset. I have to pray. I said, because a part of my prayer was this, Lord, whatever she needs, let it get to the point to where she doesn't have a choice but to call out the name Jesus. And as I drove home, the Holy Spirit began to speak to me, and it was like, you didn't use the name Jesus, but you showed up. You brought the image of Jesus. You brought the image of your God and who you serve. You made him a witness to her, and there was nothing that she can do to deny it, because the only thing that I kept speaking on was love. Jesus is love. God is love. Like that is the core of the God that I serve. That he so loved the world that he sent his one and only begotten son to die on the cross for our sins. And so I look at the only thing that it cost me. It didn't cost me my time. It really didn't cost me going outside of my normal, because really I just made a circle to come back home. And that's what I told her, that I said, ma'am, you really didn't inconvenience me. I had gas in my truck, so that wasn't anything. And I just looked at how things worked out. And so I came home praying. I came home interceding. I had to pray so hard. And eventually, when I started thanking Jesus for the encounter and everything, I began to feel that thing break up off of me. But my belief is that some stuff was breaking up off of her. My belief was that the Lord allowed for me, he allowed for his representative to be able to drive her. And I don't, it's like that thing. I said, God, I don't know her state of mind. I don't know where she comes from. That was my only question. Are you from here? She said no. From bus station to bus station. And I shared that because today I had to go do something that I was praying to God, and for 2 weeks I was like, do I do this? Because this was my thing. I'm all about motive. I said, I want to make sure that if I do this, I'm doing it out of faith and that I'm not doing it out of fear. And 2 weeks I prayed. Well, yesterday where I went, the very thing I was praying about came up, and I said, Lord, if I need to take this direction, if I need to take this process, if I need to take this step in this direction, which feels like kind of like I'm going backwards, I said, I need you to make it known. And speaking in the room yesterday, I found out, hey, if you do this, this will actually help us get you in the direction that we're trying to go. And so today I was able to go fulfill, and I was able to finish that. And it was actually a door that I didn't even think that I would be able to go through. My mind said, you may not even qualify. You may not even be able to do this, but I was able to. And because I was able to, I went to the grocery store, told Emery, because you did so great, I'm gonna get you a treat. Went to the grocery store, and things that seem small to me, but y'all, we don't know who's watching us. I helped this elderly man get a bag. He was getting corn, and I said, no, I don't want you to get that little bag. I said, let me get up top and let me get you this big plastic bag, so that way you'll be able to get what you want. And I went on about my way, and a lady stopped me that was right a little bit to the way, and she said, hey, I saw what you did for him, and I want to say thank you. I said, ma'am, it didn't cost me nothing. It didn't cost me nothing. So that was another conversation where, again, I saw the tears get ready to well up in that woman's eyes, and I began to talk about the encounter from the night before. And she said it. She said, you know what? She said, you were able to be the very thing that he needed for her to witness. So that when she gets to the place where she needs to call on his name, that encounter that you had with her last night, she said, that may be the very thing that's going to do it. That's going to be the very thing that's going to make her think about him. She said, you didn't have to say his name. You exemplified who he is and what he is about. And it came back, that same statement. She said, the world is so full of hate. I said, yeah. It costs so much to be hateful. But to love, it doesn't cost you anything. And I just began to think of those encounters, of how one moment can happen in life that leads to another moment, that leads to another moment. Fast forward to yesterday, I got a phone call from the same office that I was in yesterday. Missed it. Couldn't get back through to them today. And I was like, after I left the grocery store, I said, I'm going to call back again because I need to see if I can get them before they close today. Got through to the lady. I can't even be, that has been a testimony within itself, but I share this to say, we got off the phone, didn't think we were going to get back connected, talked to her again, and I was on the phone with that lady for an hour. Let me say this, majority of that phone call was not business related. Maybe 5 minutes out of the hour was business related. Why? Somehow we got on Jesus. I've been telling people my testimony. And I'm having to learn that it's okay. I don't have to be ashamed, because there are other people that God has out here that actually need to hear the story. And there's other people that I need to hear their faith and I need to hear their testimony. And talking to that lady today, not even here in the city of Lufkin, but a different office in a different city. And even though we didn't see each other face to face, I felt like I know that lady. I wanted to call her my sister before it was all said and done and tell her that I loved her when I got off the phone. Sometimes he can't tell us. Like, I don't know where this video was going, and I'm not really trying to be professional. This is just like two people talking on the couch and me kind of giving that encouraging word to somebody and saying, look, sometimes you just don't know what life is going to hand you. Sometimes you're going to wake up on some days and you're going to have absolutely no idea if there's anything in that day that you know that you're supposed to do, but you get up. You get up and you show up and you go, and you don't even know that there's anything waiting for you, or more so, you don't even know if there's anything waiting for you to be able to do. But you are who you are. And I think that is one of the biggest things that I love about who I am. And you know, I told that woman last night when she was like, thank you. I said, you don't have to thank me. I said, it's not because of anything that I've done. I said, if you want to be thankful for anybody, I said, be thankful for who God created me to be. Be thankful that I have the relationship that I have with him. And because of my relationship with him, I have a desire to love who he loves, to love his children, to do what the word says. That you don't have to thank me. Just be grateful that there is a man who is over my life. And because I love him and because I know that he loves me, I just want to love his people. And that's everybody. I don't mind loving on strangers. I don't mind loving on the people that other people kind of throw to the side. And that's what got me. I watched how many vehicles went around that lady, because literally she was in the street and she was struggling. And I told her, I said, but the more I watched you, the more that I kept saying, I cannot leave her here. I cannot leave her here. I cannot leave her like this. I said, I could not go home. And the whole time I was going to be wondering, did you make it? Were you safe? Were you okay? I said, when I saw you, I saw myself. The world we live in today, that is not our norm. That's not the stories that we hear. Those aren't the reports that are going to be broadcast. It's always the hate. But I have seen in the last 24 hours that there is so much more love. And sometimes you see the evidence of love when it's coming out of you. And today I say it's July the 2nd. And I have proof and I have evidence that the enemy didn't want me. He didn't want some of us others. He didn't want us to make it out of last month. The enemy doesn't want us happy. He doesn't want us joyous. He doesn't want us to be selfless. He doesn't want us to love our neighbors. He doesn't want us to take care of one another. He wants us to be hateful. And I'm just at this place to be able to say that if you will go out here and you will be the best version of yourself, good is going to come back to you. I don't care how many closed doors get shut up in your face. My testimony is that last week, the very same thing that I did yesterday, or that I attempted to do, I was ready to throw my hands up and I was ready to quit. I spoke to somebody today somebody who says, basically, I'm now in your corner. A woman who can say, I'm rooting for you. To be able to see what we can do for you so that you are able to be able to help other women in the future. For me to be able to go into places and willingly admit and say, no, I was not laid off. I was not fired. I quit. And now I'm showing up because the Lord is telling me that he's taking me a journey. He's taking me through the route to be able to make the path for somebody else. So these single mamas and these women who've been battered and these women who maybe have made terrible decisions and they're trying to get their babies back and they're trying to get on their feet. Somebody's got to be able to go through the process. Somebody's got to be able to help them get a job. Somebody's got to be able to tell them, hey, you may qualify for these resources. Hey, you can go to this office and you can fill out these applications. But what I am seeing is that the Lord in his goodness and his sovereignty, he's not just going to allow for me to assist those women in the future. He's orchestrated for me to become like the women that I'm going to be able to help and minister to in the future. And so that's been kind of one of my testimonies that, as I talked to these two ladies back to back in these 2 days, I told them, I said, I see what God is doing. He's using me to be the seed. He's using me to be the seed to the single, because I don't know what it was like to be without a job and to have to look for work and all these different things. I've never known what that felt like, especially to be a mother. But today, when he gets me to where he's told me I'm going to be, I won't just sit behind an office desk and I won't just be over the phone to be able to tell a woman, hey, go to this office and apply for this, go to this office and do ... No, I'll actually be able to hold their hands. I'll be able to tell them, hey, this may take this long and this may take this and you may have this. But what I'll also know is I'll have background knowledge to tell them, let's get this together and this together and this together and this together. Why? So that when they show up, they're not having to go through the same things that I went through. They're not having to go through the same loops and jump through the same holes. And not only will I be able to give them the information, I will have walked the pathway before them. Just like Jesus. Jesus is not just sitting in heaven looking at things and watching us and hearing us. No, he walked the walk. He knows what it's like to be tempted. He knows what it's like to be battered and abused. He knows what it's like to be stabbed in his back. He knows what it's like to be betrayed. He knows what it's like to be rejected. Like everything that we could ever live through, Jesus has already experienced it. So therefore, he can tell us he can tell us to forgive our neighbors, and we can't be upset with him because he did it, or to forgive our enemies and to love our neighbors, even those who they despise you and they abuse you and they neglect you. Jesus was a living, walking, breathing example. He can empathize and he can sympathize with us. And I look at that, for somebody who wonders, why am I going through this journey? Why does it seem like I'm going backwards? God, why did you call me to this? And then make it look like it, now I'm having to do something that doesn't make sense. It looks backwards. That's been my word. I say, God, it feels backwards, but this is what I've had to remember. Humility instead of pride. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're what? Okay, I love you too. Okay, she had to come check on me. What is she doing? She had to come, okay. Yeah, my baby had to come check on me. The same kid who told me that she wanted me to go outside to make my video. She had to come check on me. But yeah, that I think is just like the conclusion of today. Some of the things that I've learned is this: hate costs a lot, but to love people, it doesn't cost you anything. And if we will love our neighbors as we desire to be loved, and that's biblical. Love, treat others as you want to be treated. It doesn't cost you a lot to treat people good, but there is a guaranteed reward that is going to happen, that you're going to receive it. And I know that today, I can't say that what happened today is because of what happened last night, but I'm going to say this and then I'm going to get off of here because I don't have a whole lot to say. Last year, when I was told to leave my job that morning, let me put my glasses back on so I can see. That morning, I know without a doubt that I entertained an angel. Without a doubt. I don't know where that man came from. I've never seen him again. I knew that that day was different when I woke up. But when I got home that evening, the Lord gave me the instructions, and I remember sitting in my spirit, and I remember that thought to myself was, LaDisha, you passed the test. You did something that most people today would not do. You entertained an angel, meaning you entertained the Lord. And the same thought process, for some reason, it came to me last night when I picked that lady up and I drove her to where she asked me to take her. I told her, I knew that there was some part that I could have been entertaining an angel, that I was entertaining the Lord. And as I was driving today, there was one thing that reminded me of that man. It was her eyes. Both of them had crystal clear eyes. They weren't blue. They weren't. It was like I was looking into almost like glass. That's how. I don't know. It was like clean. That man last year, he was, but you know what? Both of these people, she could have been homeless. That I don't have, oh, my spirit. I don't have any too much to say. Like that was, I knew he was homeless because he mentioned it to me. And I remember telling him, I said, sir, all I can do is offer you what I got. I didn't have a lot. I said, I have some fruit. You get first choice on which, and whatever you don't have, I'll eat it when I get to work. But now that I think about it even more, it's the crystal clear eyes. Seeing these two individuals, just randomly. And I told her, I said, ma'am, I don't even go that way. I said, I don't even know why I ended up where I ended up. And that's where I told her, I said, I believe that sometimes God will put us in places and we don't even know why we're there. I said, I may have been there because of you. It just, nothing made sense. I could have got what I needed at the grocery, at the Dollar General. But there was just something that was like, I'm not eating some, I don't know. I refuse to get sick, all these different things. I contemplated and I told her, I said, I believe that God knows where we need to be, even when we don't know where we need to be. And even when we don't know why we showed up to a place. And the way that I have saw today, just the beauty, to be able to pray with a woman on the phone, to be able to hear a woman's to hear somebody's testimony, and that was my thing. I said, God, this don't even probably seem like professional, but that was the thing. When God sets something up and when God is moving in your life, things don't have to make sense. Things don't have to seem logical. Things are going to seem strange. And I am just at that place to be able to say, I'm 1 year in of full unemployment. I'm 1 year in of having to trust God. I'm 1 year in of saying yes when it didn't make sense. I'm 1 year in. And everything that I have dreamed about doing, I understand that I'm getting there. I'm on my way. I'm already in the promised land. I just had no idea that it was going to happen like this. I had no idea that he was going to require me to go this way. I had no idea that I was going to have to endure some of the things that I am enduring, but I am continuously being reminded. His timing does not fail. And he is not a God that he should lie. And so if I leave y'all with anything, and I know tomorrow is July the 3rd, if I leave y'all with anything, it's this: let love be greater than your fear. I could have let fear make me miss a beautiful moment and a beautiful encounter yesterday. But my love, and I told her, I said, I had to let love be greater than my fear. And I feel like that's where we need to live. Do not allow fear to deprive you of who God created you to be. If you are a person, you love to love, you love to serve, you love to give. If that is just who you are, that's not the right scripture. That's not the right word that I was going to say. But that's what it is. Don't be weary in well-doing. If you are a person and you've been sowing, like you live your life sowing seed, sowing good into other people, do not be weary wondering, is it ever going to come back to you? Keep being the light. Keep letting your light shine. Keep being the hands and the feet of Jesus. And it's just a guarantee. He's got you. You may not know how, but he's got you. And sometimes I think we have to step back and look at what we do have. A roof over our head. We got breath in our lungs. We got blood running through our bodies. You know, we have all of these different things, and you may be saying, but I don't have this and I don't have that. But what do you have? What can you thank him for? And when we get to a place where we can just begin to thank God, it minimizes everything else. When we can live in thanksgiving, it minimizes everything else. When we can get to a place to where we can honor him and adore him, all of our problems and all of our issues and all of those things, I'm telling you, they will not weigh as much. They won't seem as big as they did in the moment. That when you get into the presence of God, when you get into the aroma and the presence of Jesus and the Holy Spirit, it shifts things. Weights begin to transfer. Peace begins to come in. And what you took to him, you do not leave the same. That is a guarantee. So I'm in awe of God, of my Father, of Abba. And even as I sit here and I look at myself now, and it was like, you're glowing and you're shining. And I'm excited. And I tell y'all, enjoy your weekend. I'll be on here tomorrow because I don't have a choice. I do have a choice, but I don't have a choice. I'll be on here tomorrow, and this has been a soft week. Let me say that. This has been a gentle week. My spirit is welling over, and a part of me wants to cry, and I think I'm going to hold that until after I get off of this camera. But whatever you do, just do it in love. I don't think we have to carry a title of being a Christian or a believer. I think the evidence is in, do you love people? Do you love people who don't look like you? Do you love people who don't think like you? Do you love people who don't agree with you? Do you love people who may live an alternate lifestyle? Like, God didn't put limitations on love. He says love. And I want to say this statement as I was in my kitchen putting up groceries, and I don't know why this came, but it came randomly, and it was, don't ever expect a person to love you more than they know how to love themselves. Don't ever expect a person to love you more than they have the ability to love themselves. It's wrong. It's unjustified. It's undignified, and it's unbiblical. The Bible says to love your neighbors as you love yourself. But first, it says to love God and put no one else above him. So if somebody doesn't have God, if they don't have the Lord, they don't have true love within them because they've not received it from him. It's readily made available. They've just not received it. But if they also don't love themselves well, then we shouldn't have an expectation for somebody to love us better than they love themselves, to be better to us than they know how to be to themselves. So however you see a person love themselves, however you see a person take care of themselves, I mean, that's the bar. And let me say this, some people are selfish. Some people may not know how to love other people. They may, to them loving you may only be if the relationship benefits them. Well, as we know, that's not real love, but that may be what love is to them. So I give you this word as we get ready to go into this 4th of July. There are a lot of hateful people out there. Ain't nothing we can do about it. We cannot control other individuals. Half of us can't even control our own kids. A lot of people don't even know how to control themselves. Let me just make it that simple. There's a lot of hate in the world. But as I teach my girls, the only person that you can control is you. The only person that you can change is you. The only person's response that you can be in control of is your own. That's it. And it's your decision to choose what you're going to do when you're in a situation with somebody else and you got to look at what's going on. You got to decide, do I stay here or do I make a move? So whatever you do, do it in love. No matter how hard it is, no matter how tedious it is, no matter how strenuous it is, love. Love. Love, 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 love. Because I'm telling you, hate costs you a whole lot. Love doesn't cost you anything. It may cost you to get over yourself. But that's a part of being a mature individual. So I leave y'all with that. And I tell you, I love you. Not because you've done anything to deserve it, but that also means that there's nothing that you can do for it to be taken away. And so that's Thursday. That is our On God Talk. And I will see you tomorrow morning.